Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me here today, and we have a very, very special guest for you. We have a gentleman who loves to bow hunt. He's from southeastern Minnesota. He's actually from our hometown of Hayfield, and he's a backcountry bow hunter. He's a whitetail nut. And without further ado, we'll bring in Brady Kramer. Brady, how are we doing tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Doing good. Doing better now.
It's hunting season.
Yeah,
that's right.
Can't be not good, right?
Exactly right. It'd be better if it was 20 degrees cooler, though.
Yeah, well, it's coming.
It's coming. It's happening. It's
before we know it, it's going to be 30 degrees below zero, and we're not going to like it.
My daughter keeps asking for snow. She's begging me for it to snow, and I'm like, I don't control the weather. But I don't let anybody hear you say snow because it's too early for that.
And make it happen, Dad.
Yeah. If it snowed like the Friday or like Halloween night, like late after we get out trick-or-treating for an hour.
Was that 2 years ago?
Perfect.
Or 3 years ago?
Well, it was like 3 or 4 because like last year it was just really, really cold. The year before was
we did get some snow last year, if I remember.
Probably up by you, yeah.
No, we did back home too. I got receipts. I got trail camera photos.
I got receipts.
Last year
the fact checking out.
Gorgeous. Yeah, late October, early November is gorgeous. It was perfect.
Yep. I was like Noah and I always would give each other a hard time because we'd always try and strategically take off, that first week or that week right before gun season. And this year gun season is a little later, which is nice. Just how the calendar falls, but it was like we would plan it for like that last week of October. It would always be hot, and then the week before that it would be like cold, or gun would be cold. It was just like you couldn't hit it. So, but oh well, right?
It's Minnesota. Gotta love it.
Yeah,
that's exactly
just
right.
wait 5 minutes. Yeah.
No, this will be a very intriguing next 3 weeks, and just the fact that I think this is the first time in my lifetime that we've had it that where we could legitimately bow hunt the first part of the rut, like not just the pre-rut anymore, but like the first like peak rut without having to deal with anybody in the woods with a gun.
Yeah, without being joined by gun season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So I think before we dive all crazy into everything here, Brady, well, you are our star guest here. Break us down a little bit. Just give us a little bit of who you are. We kind of gave you where you're from, but just tell us a little bit about you.
Brady Kramer, from Hayfield, Minnesota. About 30 years old or so. I'm a pig farmer here. I've been hunting 10, 15 years or so. Bow hunting specifically more so, for about 10-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotta love when your TV just turns on by itself. Wow.
Eerie.
That's fun.
So Brady, you said, because obviously we've known each other for a long time. Where did you kind of how did you first get into hunting? Because you said, you big into sports, basketball, football, all that good stuff. Where was that, what was that first kind of, your memories of getting out in the outdoors?
So just like everyone else around here, I think most dads and grandpas and everything hunt. So I started hunting, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, kind of early. But back then I wasn't as into it. It was more so one of those things, get dressed up with as many layers of clothes as you can when you're 10 years old and you're sweating by the time that you leave the house. And then you get to the tree stand, and then all that sweat, you learn now, that sweat starts freezing, and now you're just shivering for the next how many hours. So it's kind of actually kind of like a miserable start. Like, all right.
That's about right.
Killed a doe or two through earlier years, middle school and whatnot, with shotgun. And then I really didn't get big into it until you guys know Jake Seamers, my brother-in-law. He started talking about archery and bow hunting and stuff like that. And for some reason, I was just like super intrigued by it. And I don't remember if that was later high school or early college kind of years.
I think it was early college? Because I remember
I
getting
think
you
you're
like
right.
your first set of Black Eagle arrows.
Yep. Yep. Deep impacts, I think they
Yep.
were.
Nice.
Yeah. And as soon as I started doing that, like just everybody else that's got the archery bug, just went, you know, dove right into it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you went like full send mode because I mean I think I put you in a category now where you are kind of a bow purist, aren't you? What you would say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last couple
Love
bucks
hearing
that
that.
are Minnesota bucks, anyways, that I've killed, were during gun season, unfortunately, but they were they were actually both on Monday or Tuesday of gun season, but archery
Mm-hmm.
goes through gun season.
Nice.
Love it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So going off of that, like you talked about the early years, getting into it, kind of early college. How is your approach? We'll get into this when we start talking deeper into hunting, but like just in a general sense of the term, like how does your approach kind of change since then? Like as far as set up, as far as especially right now being early October, what are those like key weather alerts that you see that you're like, ooh, I need to be out in a tree stand?
So locally, you mean like Minnesota?
Yeah, yeah.
Very specifically cold fronts, especially this time of year.
Yep.
Everyone talks about the October lull, which it may or may not be a thing. You listen to different podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
if they got
Yeah.
deer collar, then they might be moving, and they might not be. But for some reason, you don't seem to see them until it gets cold out. But
Mm-hmm.
a nice October cold front, um, and around a couple of places that I hunt, it's more so the direction of wind. Like if it's got a bad wind,
Hmm.
if it's going right into my woods or the specific bedding area that I'm hunting on top of, then I'll stay out or go
Mm-hmm.
to a different stand.
Sure. And
Yeah.
this is pretty unique too because I think if anybody geographically knows where we're all located in Hayfield, we've talked about it before, kind of where our farm is. We kind of lie on the outskirts of some of the bigger woods that are probably within the county. But looking at like Hayfield, I mean, talk about some like true, like almost like Indiana flat plains style hunting where you got tree groves and like maybe we're talking half acre, maybe a little bit bigger than that wood sizes. Have you noticed like with different winds, and I know we're just kind of diving into the tips and ideas for early season and mid season bow hunting here, and we'll get more into the meat and potatoes here in a little bit. But being that you are hunting smaller woodlots and fence lines within in and out of ag, have you noticed like the difference in you're just talking about wind of like where a buck's not going to come out unless he's got a southeast wind or if he's got a west wind out of where I mean having it if you have an idea where he's bedding at.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think dang near around us more so than wind, is the crop rotation and the timing of
Mm-hmm.
crops. Like throughout the summer, it's always fun to watch a nice bright red deer on some neon green soybeans throughout the summer. But then come September, they start turning yellow and they're not going to touch them
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And then for some reason, your deer just disappear. Um, so early season generally, if I'm on top of soybeans, that's probably going to be a little colder spot. Um, they'll kind of move to a different crop or internal, go to corn or some other type of feed. Um, but yeah,
So you running any trail cameras right now?
I do. Yep.
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 What are you like? I've talked to a handful of guys around the area, and Evan and I obviously been talking about it. What's your camera showing? Has it been pretty dead, or are you still getting pretty good action?
Mine's been kind of dead.
Yep.
But when I set them up this summer, and I've had to go in to put in new batteries here and there,
Mm-hmm.
not
Sure.
too common, but here and there.
Yep.
I kind of put them in places that I planned on being dead kind of early season.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that I knew that we're going to fire up come mid late October
Yeah.
and November. I mean, that see that more pickup of traffic
Mm-hmm.
later, in the heart of season.
So let's go into that a little bit deeper because that's a super interesting and helpful topic for everyone listening. Is what are those focus areas where it's early season and probably going to maybe get a doe straggling through or something, but come pre rut, what are those areas you're talking about?
So a lot of like more specifically travel corridors and kind of pinch points almost.
Yep.
Kind of like Evan alluded to earlier, you have these smaller pieces of wood, so you don't really have the giant woods where you have deer bedding over here and you have a small piece of food over here and you're going to catch them in between that. It's more so catching them in between farm and bed, or bed and farm, or moving to a different farm, or transitioning along those points.
Yep.
Yeah, it's more so come late October, November, when you see antlers start moving in the area. That's where I started putting my trail cams a little more early to
Nice.
start catching them later
Are
in the
you
season.
are you using any, talking about, and I know we'll get into this more a little bit later, that I know you're a fairly mobile hunter when it comes to, running and gunning and saddling and all that stuff, but do you have permanent sets? And if you do, especially even on your trail cameras, are you utilizing just like, the, Sturgis style licking branch and just kind of getting mock scrape set up too?
I set up a mock scraper here and there once or twice,
Sure.
not too often. Don't have super consistent licking branches in the same spot close to my permanent stands. I do have a couple permanent stands, like I have a couple family members and whatnot that hunt as well.
Sure.
So we have some ladder stands and everything that are hooked up, that are again generally in that more consistent area, kind of almost pinch points ish. But as of recently, yeah, I've steered more towards the mobile hunting, because it seems like once you're in that ladder stand a couple sits in a row, then you get that same doe that comes out and starts blowing at you and looks up exactly, knows exactly where you're at. It'd be nice to be on the other side of that grove or that opening, in that perfect standing tree over there, and you're just staring at it like, man, I wish I could be over there. It's kind of nice to go in there on individual nights and pick where you want to be.
No, I love that. No, it's really good. And I think we'll save the rest as we kind of get into a little bit more talking about the Midwest hunting. But we apologize, because I know we meant to have you on here about almost 3 weeks ago, but all of our schedules have just got crazy. And I know you're in the field, but congratulations on your Colorado mule deer buck. That's kind of the highlight of the episode we wanted to talk about. So just kind of take us into, like, I know this has been a couple year journey for you, but just kind of break down, just a little bit about that just experience and the journey, and tell us a little bit about the hunt.
Yeah. I've been big on mule deer for quite a few years. After a couple of years of being in archery, when I was younger, I started getting the Western bug, looking at bull elk and mule deer and everything is kind of exciting. And I went on my first out-of-state hunt in 2019, and I killed a bull for some reason on my first year. A nice 5-point archery,
giant too.
Yeah, it was a good one, thankfully. And that was, I bugled him in, and it was just a scream off for quite a while. It was your picture perfect kind of bull hunt, and I managed to get it on the first try.
Wild. And
then after that, once you see a big 4-point muley, especially in velvet, that's all you think about. So yeah, that was I think it was 21 or 20. I think I went to Utah for my first deer hunt, and I met a buddy out there. The first day I got hailed on, and it was just a terrible day. Then the next day we got up to our glassing point right away at daybreak, and I saw a couple 4-points in velvet, and that's absolutely had me hooked. Didn't see any antlers for the rest of that hunt. And then come 2 or 3 years later, I threw a dart at the map and picked this location that I went to last year in Colorado.
I think you tried to go to Arizona, didn't you too?
I did, yeah. I forgot about that, actually. Went to Arizona because they have that over-the-counter mule deer archery hunt, I think December, January, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And that's kind of goofy because it's a unique hunt. Yeah. Had very little luck around there until the last day, when about an hour before I needed to get off the hill, and I saw a nice big, I think was a 4-point, just like a boxy frame. And the closest I got to him was 120 yards, but That was gorgeous as well.
Nice.
I was in Colorado. High country Colorado is something different.
So
Nice.
dive into that a little bit. Like how does, like we were just kind of getting into the nitty gritty of how to, hunt whitetails. What's some of the similarities, and then what are some of the differences between, hunting farm country whitetails and then going mule deer high country?
They're pretty different from at least from my point of view. Outside of being bachelor grouped up in September, you know what I mean? Because as you guys know, we live here at 1,300-ish feet. Move that decibel place over one, and then you got Colorado. I killed that buck this year in 12,500 feet, I believe he was. Wow. It's flat, above tree line. There's not a whole lot of tree or anything growing up there, but pretty different. And then around here, like what you said, those smaller little corners and field lines, corners of woods and field lines and bean fields and corn fields, you can't really necessarily glass a buck and put him to bed or anything like that. And that's kind of at least how I have learned to do so out west with mule deer is find them, put them to bed, and make a move on them.
Mm-hmm. And, I want to dive more in the kind of just your strategies and stuff, but tell us about that hunt first. Break that down for us, how that all went.
This year's hunt?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I went back to the same spot I was last year. I had a little bit of a heartbreak. I can go into last year just quickly if you want.
Go for it.
I threw a dart at the wall for a unit, kind of just out of the blue, something that was easy to draw that might have opportunity. I got up there and set up camp. I've never been there before, and had an older buck that wasn't scoring whatsoever, but he was kind of limping and he had some stuff. And I found an older buck, and on my first morning there, and then come the next day opener, Colorado elk hunter, over the counter elk hunters, kind of moving elk around and moving around and hiking and everything which way. I had an opportunity. They bumped a giant actually my way. I ranged a bush in front of me where I thought he was going to walk in front of, which was at 45, and then he ended up walking behind it. I released an arrow and I watched it fly perfectly straight. Just dove right underneath him. Ended up being behind that bush and closer to another one that I should have ranged prior. It was at about 55 to 60, 57 or so. So that was a heartbreaker. And then after that, I didn't have any luck at that particular location. So I moved down the ridge, 2 or 3 miles, just hopped down the ridge, ran down 3 miles, and I hopped in this new basin. And at that basin, through the next 2 or 3 days, I had bucks every day. I had bucks on both sides of the basin, 4 points, 3. It was just picture perfect. Come my last day of the hunt, I was running out of food. I was running out of energy. I put a nice.
You lost some weight, didn't you? On that trip?
I lost like 10, 15 pounds or something.
Jeez.
That was part of the learning. That was on me because I didn't pack my calories as I should.
Sure.
So I think my average caloric intake for those days that I packed were like 17 to 1,800 calories. Yeah. So I mean, with the high elevation,
it's called the Atkins mountain diet.
Yeah.
it was effective. It worked.
Yeah, there you go.
I could not walk, but it worked. I put this 4-point and 3x4 to bed. Gorgeous deer, and for some reason I got lucky. They came out underneath me. I put them to bed and I made a good stock. I kicked the 4-point up when I was about 160 yards away, but I was just straight on top of them on this little cliff. And I did not see the 3x4 leave. I ended up getting close, right above him, about 20 yards or so. I went on every side of him that I could, and I couldn't find a way in until I found this avalanche chute, which would be, I'd say, to the right of him.
Sure.
And I start stalking down here, and I see half of his bed where I put him down. He's not there. I'm like, shoot, he's not there. I'm about to slide down this avalanche chute. So I hopped to this next rock so I didn't slide down the hill. And as soon as I hopped to that rock, I see the rest of his bed, and he's laying there at 7 yards just waiting for me to pop my head around. And it was just, just a giant, tall 3x4 muley, mature, beautiful, and we locked eyes and he bolted.
Wow.
So this last year or so, I've been obviously thinking about that every single day of my life, right?
Those are the things that haunt you in your sleep.
It was the worst and best thing that have ever happened.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I've been thinking about him and that specific basin, that camp spot and
Yep.
everything that I had to deal with there, and for sure, like you're not going to think of that being an easy draw and be like, you know what, I don't want to go back there next year. So I applied, drew again, thankfully, and I didn't really have to do too much homework on it because I knew exactly where I was going to go back to. So I head out there. It was kind of a bet. I had a couple pig loads the day that I was leaving to go west. So I was up at 2 a.m. and I left at about noon, which made for a long day. Yeah. So that's kind of a fun story of the whole Western trips, and you're sleeping at rest stops and Walmart parking lots.
What is it? About 18 hours?
It's about 16 and a half, 17-ish,
Okay.
to my area. I'm not gonna. I suppose I won't give like basins and whatnot away, but around that kind of western Colorado, southwestern.
Nice.
Yeah. So I got out there and I hiked in, and it's about a 6-mile hike in to this basin where I'm at, in 3,000 or so foot elevation gain. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
And I got up there. I set up my camp at a different spot than the year prior. And as soon as I set up camp, I went back to that basin to look over. I set up camp away from that basin so I could, kind of go in and glass, and I wasn't spooking anything out of it. As soon as camp was set up, I went over the ridge and I looked in that basin, and lo and behold, all I see is 3 or 4 bear immediately. So I was
not expecting that.
No, not at all. Big old black boar, and then a nice color phase sow, black bear sow with 2 cubs.
Oh boy.
Just owning the hillside, which is fine. And then there was actually a group of cattle underneath as well. So that kind of sucked. Wasn't expecting that. I glassed that evening, and that was the night before opener. Picked up actually in the drizzling rain between the bear and the cattle and everything, picked up a 3x4, a nice buck that, I'd shoot. He's mature. But the problem is he was down in the thick timber. He was in one little 10, 15 yard wide opening between a big woods and a big woods. So I couldn't really put it was obviously the day before or the night before opener, but I couldn't really put a play on him. And that was kind of the story for that first spot. For the next 2 days, I woke up in glass as soon as day broke, and I would have bears in both basins that I could see. I would have cattle in the bottom of basins, and the only deer that I found, 1 or 2 days out of the 3 or 4 that I was at that first spot was that 3x4 that wouldn't leave that thicker timber,
And did you go same time frame too?
Yep, opener.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I think it was September 2nd, the last 2 years opener has been. Yeah. And I mean, it was gorgeous velvet. I don't think I've seen a deer out there, my 2 trips out there, that hasn't been perfect velvet. Exactly what you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, after that first spot, after all the bear encounters, I had a couple close ones, some cattle encounters, and the one buck that wouldn't leave the thick timber. I made a decision that I really didn't think I was going to have to make, but I was going to have to leave that basin that I saw double-digit bucks out of the year prior, right?
Mm.
So I made a move, and through Onyx and online scouting, I found a different spot that I kind of wanted to try out, which was maybe 30 miles as the crow flies, right? But it took all of
you bugged
3.5 hour drive.
Jeez.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, it was a 6-mile hike out, but like from peak to peak, it was probably 30 or 40 miles, but it was like a 3 or 4 hour drive, just because you're driving through
the
down mountains. And,
Yeah.
but I knew at least everything that I'd seen online, and you take in your hiking pictures that people post and whatnot of the
Mm-hmm.
specific canyons and the ridges and everything, and I'm like, man, that looks pretty dang good. Um, so I get to my new spot later. I end up camping on the trailhead and hiking the next day at 6 or 7 a.m. Get up to another spot that I had never been to, and I'm just like in normal Western high country Colorado fashion, you look around and you're just in awe. The
Mm-hmm.
most gorgeous place you'd ever seen. It's hard to put your phone down just taking pictures. Um, but after a couple of years, I'm here to do a job, so I find
That's right.
a good spot to glass from, and I start looking. Um, Thankfully, right away, I picked up a couple little forkies to my immediate left, nice and close. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They're in a terrible spot, but it's kind of cool to see deer right away. I went back and set up camp about a half mile behind me so I could reach this ridge that was kind of nice and close, and I didn't have to go too far up or down. And at that same spot, I'm kind of looking mile and a half, 2-ish miles away, high in some of the perfect, high country
Mm-hmm.
Colorado waist high shrub. And I'm starting to see a little bit of movement over there. I think it's a doe and a couple fawns, and maybe followed by a little forky. So I had optimism there.
Nice.
Yeah. Last year I had a spotting scope, which I ended up leaving this year just because I barely ever used it.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily looking for cheaters or inches or anything like that. I'm looking
Yeah.
for just a mature buck. If
Mm-hmm.
I see a frame, I don't really care if it's a 2-point or anything like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
a frame.
Yep. So real quick before you continue, what are you running for binos?
Vortex Viper 12 by 50s.
Nice. It's a good
Yeah.
setup.
Perfect.
Yeah, I like them.
Yep.
You can get them on a tripod. I have a nice light. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to think of the brand right now. Tripod, nice light, kind of carbon fiber
Mm-hmm.
tripod, and a quick
Yep.
attach kind of stud.
Mm-hmm.
So a pretty lightweight setup. And then last year I had that spotting scope, and I just never used it. And then I would have to change out my quick adapter stud, and it was
Yep.
just a hindrance.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I feel like it goes both ways with that. Even like being out just like Western South Dakota or like the prairies and stuff, like a spotting scope's nice, but especially for you, like someone like watching weight, because you're literally hiking that amount in and you're making camp and all that stuff. And like 12 by 50s, I mean, get you by. You could see a lot with those, especially if
Yeah.
you got like the Vipers. Those are good glass.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, that's exactly why. I mean, the weight that they were, I think my spotting scope was a little bit over 2 pounds, but then you had that.
Sure.
It's more so like the pack
Mm-hmm.
size. It wasn't necessarily, you can't fold that up like a down jacket or anything.
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving that, and my Vortex ended up working pretty dang well. I have a very cool picture on my phone. It's from a mile and a half away, not zoomed in of my phone,
Mm-hmm.
looking at a deer, and all you can see was the frame. So that's exactly what I was looking at, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I set up camp, and then I went back to this glassing point. High country Colorado. I had a little storm roll in. I think it was just rain that day. It was snow the day or two before. It was 80 degrees and snowing on me or whatever. But
Jeez.
just for an hour or two in the middle of the day. After the rain let up, immediately it got sunny again and turned 80 degrees. It was just hot. So I went back to my spot, my glassing point, and I looked back up on this higher face that I was watching previously. And God dang it, there's another buck that stood up, or the same buck that stood up, and I could see a frame. It was 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had hiked out of my last spot all 6 miles and 3,000 feet the night before. I had walked into this spot with my full camp and packed 4.5, 5 miles today. My legs were dead. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to go make a stalk. And I looked at them another 5 minutes. I'm like, you know what? At least I can hike my empty pack up there and at least see what it looks like so I can think about making a stalk tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. I got 3/4 of a mile. I lost a couple 100 feet of elevation. Then I got up to an avalanche chute that I had to gain about 800 foot of elevation, just kind of straight up. Got up there and I was kind of looking around, and all of a sudden there's this buck over here, stood up, feeding, looking away from me. Nice, well, this is kind of cool, fun play for tomorrow. And I got a little closer, and I ended up getting about 300 yards or so. Like, well, it'd be kind of stupid of me to turn around and not make a play, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting at 270, and this big 4-point is up feeding, pointed away, and his body is just looking like a horse, right? High country muleys, they're not small animals.
No. Mm-hmm.
So I kind of hunker down. I'm literally on a ridge top with nothing around me, no bushes or anything. I'm just on a peak, hoping that he doesn't turn around and see this stop sign of a guy just standing there, right? But I range him. He's at 270, so I kind of mark it on my Onyx and where I'm supposed to be. He beds back down, and I lose sight of him. Excuse me. Kind of get closer, about 200 yards or so, and I know I have to go a little further. And then I start poking into these little shrub brushes. I'm not sure what you want to call them. That typical high country Colorado shrub, it's about knee waist high. But there's not very many walkways in between them, right? Mm-hmm. So I got to poke into this one, and I think I can get over here, and then I get there, and I'm like, I'm going to have to stomp through this.
Are you wearing
stuff.
boots at this point still?
At this point, I am. Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm trying to still get closer. I'm not 100% sure how close I am, but I'm about 70-ish yards from what my phone says, and that was a glorified guess, right? So I do that a couple times, and then I end up ditching the boots, and I kind of do it a couple more times for at least half an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm in poking in this vein, poking in this opening, that I can actually walk without breaking any branches, backing out, coming back around, poking over here, and looking at my Onyx, checking my distance from my point that hypothetically that deer's at versus me. I don't know how many times I do that until I finally find a spot. I'm like, there's a tree there, a tree there, a tree there, and a tree there. So he could be bedded within 15 to 30 or 40 yards of me. I have no idea. I can't see him. When you see these high country deer beds, it's incredible that we ever see them. It is absolutely wild. So I kind of find this spot where I'm comfortable. I think I'm close enough. I'm about 25, 28 yards on my Onyx, and where in theory I thought he was. Come 4 o'clock or so, at 4:30 or something like that, I had been there waiting for another half hour, and I kind of had to make a decision because camp was 2 hours or so back, and if I happen to do something stupid and kill a buck, then truck's another 2 hours after that. So after listening to how many countless podcasts, Brian Barney and Clint Casper and all these different podcasts and high country buck hunters and telling you not to throw a rock to try and make a deer stand up, I ended up throwing a rock to make a deer stand up.
Hey, it's only stupid if it doesn't work, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm going to run out of daylight here. And I'm high in the country. I'm 12.5, 12.4, 12.5 or something like that. So I don't even have very many rocks around me. But I finally find one that's throwable. So I'm about to throw this rock. I'll give you a visual. I think my buck is kind of at my 12 o'clock straight in front of me, right? Just straight downhill. So I take this rock and I chuck it to my 2-ish, kind of 30 degrees to my right, just to try not to hit the dang deer, but spook him up a little bit. So I throw this rock 45 degrees, 30 degrees this way, and then I hook up on my bow, and I'm kind of waiting for antlers to step up right in front of me, and then all of a sudden I see 4 tines on both sides pick his head up no more than 5 yards from where that rock landed. I swear, it's like if I knew where that deer was bedded, I probably couldn't have thrown it closer to him. It's wild that he
had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I dang near concussed the dang thing before I shot him.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
Yeah, so I threw that rock, and it was pretty dang close to him. He kind of picked his head up, but I could only see the top 4 or 5 inches of his antlers, so his top tines and everything. He's still bedded. He's kind of wondering what happened, even though, meteor just fell right next to him.
Well, that's almost like best case scenario.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dumb luck for me, for sure. I mean, that if anything else, any smarter deer would have been gone, for sure.
Yeah.
But for like solid 30 seconds or so, he's looking around. He's kind of checking out what happened. Wasn't very alert from what I could see, but he ended up standing up and taking a couple bites. Since I didn't think he was over there and I threw the rock over there, I had a tree in between me and him. So I kind of had to take a couple slow steps past this little tiny pine, 6-foot tall high country pine. By the time that I did that, my range of 31 yards where he was bedded, and I had dialed my sight to, I think he had taken a couple steps, so he's probably closer to 35, 36, and I didn't necessarily count for that. So I drew back, and it was just a perfect kind of slightly quartering away shot. I released, the arrow looked good, but I didn't hear a thwack. He jumped out to about 60 or 70 yards and turned around, looked at me, and I knocked him up, and there was no holes in him. So I had missed him, unfortunately. A gorgeous, nice, wide, tall, pretty, stereotypical 4-point buck, right? And perfect velvet, exactly what you're looking for. And what I had been, planning and working out for and sacrificing everything for, a couple years now. So yeah, he's out of my life for probably ever. You could take a swing at 60, or I shoot 60 pretty religiously. But what happened next kind of took my attention away. So as soon as he bound out to 60, I kind of got a good look at him through the binos, and I know I didn't hear anything, so I knew it wasn't a shot. I didn't hit him. As soon as he bound out, I heard my little tiny woods around me erupt. It was the wildest thing. I would not expect this, and for some reason, there were 5 more bucks within 30 yards of where I shot. They all just erupted. Oh my God! It was incredible.
It is amazing how they can hide.
It was so crazy. I mean, and they're big animals, and they got big antlers, and I swear, I got some decent binoculars, and I was focusing in on trees that were 20 yards away from me, and I couldn't see a single tine.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So that big one I missed, he was away. And then I had a couple little forks, a smaller 4-point. He was still immature. He was kind of thinner.
Sure.
Shallow forks, not very wide and whatnot. But then I had this bigger buck to my, let's call it 7 o'clock, kind of behind me, a little bit uphill. So he's kind of above me to my back left, and he literally blew up from 20 yards from me when I shot at that other buck, and he bound off. He was literally 20 yards from me, and he had no idea what had happened. So he got up there to 38, standing there quartering to me. I ranged him. I'm like, hey, that's a great deer. That's a mature buck, and he
has no idea that you're there.
Not a clue. Not a clue. And I'm below him. I'm kind of going up like this.
That's not your typical mule deer shot either.
No, it's not. It was goofy. And like around here, we don't get too many shots that are up or down 45 degrees or anything like that. So kind of goofy. So after I missed my first shot, what am I going to lose? Like I better take my time and actually get a good range, roll my dial and everything to it. So I range this deer. He's at 37, 38, and I roll my my sight to it. Lo and behold, he's still standing there. By the time I get my sight there, I draw, and he's still standing there like, oh, goodness, well, I might as well release this arrow. So I put the pin on him. I start pulling. My shot breaks, and it sounds great. Oh, did that just happen? I might have just hit a buck. He turned around, and for some reason, he didn't run. He turned around like he was hit, but then he stopped right away. And as soon as I turned around and stopped, he was blading off his offside. So I threw another arrow at him. Not 100% sure if that second one connected because I might have been shaking a little bit, but that first one definitely connected. He bound off another, 80 or so yards, and he's sitting there on a rock cliff. I have a pretty cool picture on my phone about this. He's just sitting there bleeding, unfortunately, and not dead yet, but he's standing there wobbling and he's losing a lot of blood. I can see that, and I know he's going to go down, thankfully. But it's a gorgeous picture, and he's standing there with all of his glory. You know, he's a gorgeous animal in a gorgeous country, and then all of a sudden he takes a tumble. It's steep country, and he took a death dive down that.
Oof.
Crazy, man. That's like,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about it. And you kind of went through all of it too. Like, that is just the epitome of like, figure it out. Like, just learning from sheer, like, the ups and the downs and just like all the, and I've got so many questions, but just kind of, so that's an incredible. So tell us, you shot him, he fell down the hill. Did you end up like just that whole night grinding it out, getting him out to the truck, or did you have to make camp? I mean, you're 6 miles in.
So I didn't, that's why I did end up throwing that rock, because it was getting later in the afternoon and I didn't necessarily want to be tromping around at 10, 11 o'clock, whether it was, I got back to my tent and I was covered in blood, which I was already covered in blood by the time I started cutting them. But like I had said earlier, and like I had seen a couple of times in that area, there's a lot of dang bear around. And since I am by myself, I give a little more precaution. So I wanted to be out of there plenty early. So it was a little earlier, thankfully. I did a quick job butchering him up. It might have been a little crude, but I got all the usable meat off him, and then obviously the back straps and tendies. I only took half. I took the 2 fronts, neck meat, and back straps out the first night, and I left the 2 quarter and the head, of course. I left the 2 rear quarters up there, and I had to make a decision when I started hiking whether I was going to stop at camp or whether I was going to go all the way back to the truck, ditch the quarters and go get some more ice, or get some ice and come back up, or stay in town, or what I was going to do. But I got them cut up, walked my half, 3/4 of a mile down the ridge, kind of to descend back towards camp and whatnot. And halfway down that avalanche chute that I had to hike up to get up there, made a bad step apparently. I'm guessing I was still hyped up on adrenaline and everything, but I made a bad step on a rock, and I landed on that rock with all my weight and that buck's weight on me. And yeah, actually, I still can't lay on my left side because of that rock. It's got a little indentation on my hip for some reason.
Oh, jeez.
What?
Yeah.
So what is it? Did you break your hip or what happened?
There's no bones, I don't think, that broke, but I'm not sure if it was a nasty dang bruise, of course. It still is actually a little bit still there a month later. But I don't know if that point of the rock, because it was a decent little rock that I landed on, if that point of the rock kind of like almost sheared a little bit of the muscle inside. I'm not 100% sure, but if I put weight on, like you just laying in my nice cushion soft bed, if I put weight on that left side, it's like, maybe not yet. Can't do that.
The joys of turning 30.
or the joys of putting in too much work and putting too much effort into killing a deer that's 5 or 6
could you like
miles
walk after that, or I mean, like, were you able to make it back, or?
Yeah, I could. I did. It was quite a bit more of a limp than it was prior, obviously. And boy, was I sore. And I have a satellite Zoli or whatever. I messaged my fiance. I'm like, hey, by the way, it's going to be a long day tomorrow packing out meat.
Nice.
But then I told her after I fell down that little avalanche chute, I was like, could you, I don't have any service at that point, so I was like, could you potentially look at like a cheap hotel in town, like a nice bed, and maybe even a shower, and maybe I'll be able to walk tomorrow to get the rest of that buck. So she ended up doing that. I was very thankful for her for doing that. Got in there and I took my pants and whatnot off and take a look at that, like, oh, that doesn't look good. And then
did you have any moment in time where you're like, I'm gonna have somebody come get me, or did you just like, I'm getting off the mountain regardless?
not come get me. For sure, I'm getting off the mountain regardless.
Yeah.
But the next day was in question.
Mhm.
The next day
sure.
would have been Thursday. So I was like, I told her like I'll be home Friday if I can get up the mountain Thursday to pack the rest of this buck off. Otherwise, I'm going to be home Saturday because I'm going to take a day because I
Mhm.
can't barely walk to my truck, right? But yeah, I wasn't 100% sure. So wake up the next day and I can move. It hurts, but I can move.
Nice.
So drive back out to the trailhead and I put my boots on and every step, the first half mile, you're like, oh, well, this sucks after like football 2 days or something.
Yeah.
Then you get warming up and you're like, well, I made it now. I can move. So
Yep.
hiked the 4.5 miles back to that buck. Unfortunately, the worst part of the story is I had a quarter missing and the carcass was moved, but I did recover, one of the rear quarters there. So I don't
Nice.
know if a coyote, a cat, or a bear or something got into it. I'm not sure, but I didn't want to stay around too long to find
It's
out.
always
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
fun to figure out.
Yeah. There's plenty of stories like that, and all the bear encounters that are at home stories that I tell the fiance. I don't necessarily like, hey, I just walked up on a bear.
Yeah.
Did
you see any cats when you're out there?
I didn't see any cats this time. I have seen one up around the Vale area, just
sure.
kind of glassing.
Yep.
But then also the year prior would have been 23 at that same campsite, that basin that I started at. One of the watering holes where I get all my drinking water, there's a cat track and a mud bear.
Sure.
So I have no doubt that they were around. And then,
Yep.
the amount of bear that I had this year, there's predator-rich environment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I've got a whole slew of questions for you. An incredible story, but like first, just since we're talking about predators and stuff, were you carrying it all when you're out there? Or did you carry bear spray? Or you carrying, Glock 10 or what were you?
Yep, I have a sidearm. I have the marsupial gear bino pack, and then I have
Nice.
that it's got the molly attachment underneath with a little sidearm attachment. So I keep a 45 in there, a little SIG, I believe it is.
Don't mess around. I like that.
Oh yeah, and I kind of got that because I wasn't sure on what to get for Colorado and or grizzly country. Come to find out, you do plenty of research, and apparently a 45 doesn't touch a grizz, so maybe it was a bad decision. You could just I just bump down to a 9 and save probably a dang pound, but get a 10 for grizzly encounters. But I still carry around that. It makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Peace of mind.
My biggest fear in life is actually mountain lions. So that's one of my main. I can bump into. I've shot a couple black bears and I've ran into them at 7 yards before a couple times. It's not uncommon. I can handle myself around a black bear, but a mountain lion staring at me, I really don't want to see that.
The scary thing about a cat is you typically won't. I mean, like that's pretty rare. I feel like for you to see him on a hoof. Or not the hoof on a foot, I'll walk around. Typically, by the time you see them, they're like danger close, hunting you.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to have is to randomly find one attached to the back of my neck on accident.
Steve French, he's out there.
God. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, that's a incredible story. And talk about like I said it earlier. I mean, like the highs and the lows. I mean, it sounds like you literally in one trip. Like got all the highs and the lows and the sucks and like encompassed like 5 years of hunting into one trip.
Pretty much, yeah. The year prior is dang near all high, and then this year
got you hooked, just suckered you.
It really did. Yeah, This year there's no antlers besides that. I had that one underneath me in that first spot, but besides that, I was expecting everything that it was the year prior, and it wasn't that. So I had talked to my fiance a couple times. Like, I don't know what the heck to do right now.
Yep.
It was plenty of suck. There was a lot of suck to embrace.
Well, so go ahead. Sorry, Luke.
Oh no! So I mean, just going off of that, because Evan and I have talked about embracing the suck quite a bit on here before. So you're by yourself. You're in the middle of nowhere, really, Colorado. What? How do how do you deal with that
Mm-hmm.
mentally? How do you not only embrace the suck, but get through the fact that you're not talking to anybody for days,
Solo.
that you're by yourself? What do what's your mindset? Not only going into it, but throughout the hunt.
I think the main thing, obviously, is that I have a deer tag, and I'm there to fill said deer tag. I'm in pretty country, so one of the bonuses is that I get a gorgeous view, and I get to
Mm-hmm.
look at umpteen different animals in mountain ranges and everything. This year I actually was lucky enough. I had a mountain goat that popped up
Oh,
400
sweet.
yards from me on my same ridge.
Sweet.
Hiking into this second spot, I actually had a bachelor group of Shiras moose, or I believe that's what the ones that are in Colorado
Yep.
bulls. And I've
Jeez.
never seen a bull in Colorado before. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that alone kind of keeps you going. Like what
Mhm.
else am I going to see next?
Yeah.
Obviously, hoping that it's a mature buck to chase to try and put your to tag on.
Yep.
But outside of that, it's I've found, yeah, embracing the suck. I like killing animals and doing these hunts that make you work for it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of time, a lot of effort into honing the archery skill is one thing, but a whole lot more time to keep yourself in shape, for example, or doing
Yep.
research on the types of foods and the types of everything that you need, the amount of calories, fats, proteins that you need to bring. Um, the entire gear list gets completely scrutinized, throughout the year. That goes over and over, and let alone picking your spot. I was lucky enough to kind of have a spot to go back to, but
Yep.
otherwise you're kind of just looking at maps and you have no idea. So I mean, it's a lot of what I like about it and what keeps me going is the adventure. Just like most of us, we like to chase things and see what's over the next ridge. So I'd say that's the majority of it. I do get to message fiance and or parent or whoever a couple times a day through that satellite messenger, which is pretty big. But besides that, yeah, this is the third or fourth trip where I haven't really talked to a person in 4, 5, 6, whatever days.
It's crazy.
So then you get out and you make a phone call and then you don't really have a voice and you're like, oh, you're talking like you just don't have a voice, right? It kind of sounds goofy to hear yourself talk, but that is a good problem to have, I think.
Yeah.
I think I would be like Ben Stiller from Tropic Thunder, where he's wearing the panda suit. Had he's been gone for like 4 hours if I was by myself. I can't imagine doing 6 days by myself.
Yeah.
Oh, so with that though, I mean, is that something you prefer, or would you, saying like, all right, I've got 3 guys that I know they're gonna, these, because like I've learned that through the years. I mean, like there's some people that can handle the hunts and can't handle hunts, but is that something you would rather prefer to have a couple of people with, or do you like the solitude that you get being out there by yourself?
I enjoy my solo hunts. I enjoy the solitude. I can make my own decision. I can put camp where I want it and everything like that. That being said, I think it is more fun to be successful, to encounter these animals and have opportunities and whatnot, to share it with someone.
Yeah.
I've had a number of Montana deer tags and whatnot. You go and stay in a big canvas tent with a stove and stuff like that you go back to every night, and those are a blast. I absolutely love that. It's just a different feeling going into a Colorado solo hunt when you're on top
For sure.
by yourself.
Yeah, I think it's almost a different mentality too.
Yeah.
So I probably know the answer to this a little bit, but is this like for you when you're doing, like you said, going with, the guys or whoever for some of these other hunts is fun and it's a good time going back, shooting stories at campfire. But what sort of reset is it for you as far as when you're doing these solo trips? What does that do for you?
It puts you can ask my fiance about this, but it puts my whole year into, either a success or just a successful story. Because whether I'm looking at maps, I'm always, whether you're working out or shooting your bow throughout the winter or anything, it's for your next hunt, right?
Yep.
You're preparing for it, whether you even thinking about it in the time or not. You made this decision, you're going to do this hunt, you're going to prepare for it, you're going to work out, you're going to shoot, you're going to do all these things. So you get a little bit of anxiety when you're leaving for the trip, but you get out there and you start making your moves, climbing up, set up your camp, find your first deer, what have you. That's finding your success, right? I mean, that's taking your entire year pretty much and giving it. I mean, it has worth, obviously, when you're doing it and afterwards, not even for the hunt, whether it's on my day job and whatnot. But the reason that you started it, you're giving that worth. Is you accomplished it. Whether I fill a tag, if I make it to at the top of a ridge and set up camp, and successfully find deer, whether kill it or not, or just see bear running around or bull elk. There's bull elk everywhere up in the high country at that time of year. It's, you made it a successful trip. You succeeded in what I started out to do for the last 11 and a half months.
No, and there's so much truth to that. And I just, even if it's just those 4-day weekend getaways that you get to have, that you plan, I know a lot of our wives and girlfriends question what the hell we've been doing for 9 months, prepping and mentally preparing ourselves for those moments. But, kind of going with all that. And, we talked about the highs and lows of the trip, and you experienced a lot in a short period of time, like a lot, which is awesome. And so just with all the emotions that you kind of went through in the roller coaster with stuff, what are some those key takeaways that you bring back to home, because we talk about embracing the suck all the time. And I love that apart, though I enjoy those hunts that are just miserable, that really kind of shape you. And for me, it completely evens me out. I can come back home and anything's easy. So what are some of those takeaways that you get from doing those really hard things and then just coming back to being a husband, coming back to being a farmer, and just all those, how do those apply to your life?
Yeah, I mean, embracing the suck is taking those terrible moments and beating them, right? And whether you're out in Colorado or you're at home working or anything, everyone has terrible moments. It's whether it's super terrible or not. Did you have a flat tire today before you're heading to work? That sucks. You're going to be upset about that. But is it worse than, getting caught in a rainstorm at 13,000 feet when you're a mile and a half from camp? Yeah, it depends on who you ask, right? It kind of sucks, if you just saw a mountain lion track when you were filtering water, or a sow and a cub on the other side of this ridge, and it was getting dark, so you go back to your tent and you settle down for the night, and you're like, man, I really hope that sow and cub doesn't come this way, because they might not like me here and have something to say about it. Succeeding out there, or not even succeeding, just kind of being out there and surviving and doing it correctly, and not having to starve or dehydrate yourself. You're kind of thriving in the backcountry. That just sets you up at being a more rugged kind of, maybe not. Yeah. That's not the word I'm looking for, but can accept more hits. More downfalls on your daily life. It just kind of sets you up for more succeeding through the negativity, I guess.
For sure. And, and kind of going with that too. And I know we could literally talk about this hunt and this style of hunt for hours. And I think it'd be good. We'll definitely have you on another podcast when we can dive in the nit and gritty with all of it. I know we've got a lot in our docket, but I've got one last question. Being that, you've chased them humbling yourself, you chased these things for 4 years before you actually connected with an arrow. And I feel like you've have a lot of trial and error and learned through a lot of failures to get that success, which makes it even more bittersweet. But tell me maybe 3 or 4 or 5, some of those key moments of learning moments, I think my good example is the first time going up to South Dakota, learning that you got to run the ridges and not literally go up and down the hills, because that's terrible. So like, just tell me like some of those key things that it just took time and like to learn those to where now you feel like you're kind of a sharpened knife now going out there.
Um, since we do live in Minnesota, southeast Minnesota, you don't get to hunt every weekend in Colorado, for 2 months in a row. So I do a lot of listening and taking in a podcasts or YouTube videos or forums or anything like that. But my own personal experience is dang near go in line, right? The first spot last year in 23. The first time I actually got a shot at a deer, it was kicked up by a elk hunter, and that was a miss yardage. So that's learning on how to actually range the animal, not range a bush, and be sure of the range and be sure of the shot, right? Because that arrow was flying perfectly at him, it just went underneath it. And therefore, that buck is probably living today still. After that, I had that big 3x4 in its bed at 7 yards. And that was me assuming that he had left. So I was stalking in on a failed stalk before I even finished it. So that's kind of just keeping your head in it, assuming that it's going to work out until you know for a fact that it's not.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah. I didn't hear him leave. I didn't see him leave, but I saw his buddy walk away. So I made the assumption that he wasn't there anymore, and that could have been the easiest shot of potentially my career at 7 yards.
I just think of those moments like where you were talking about this with your hunt though, like when you're sub 70 yards and like that deer's there. He's there, and it might be an hour goes by, it might be 3 hours, it might be 4 hours. That deer's there, but then you just have that little doubt in your head where it's like, maybe he's not there. Maybe he's not where you think he is. And it's like, no, he's just got to trust it. Just got to trust the process that he's going to be there. That's like the exciting part, but it's so hard.
It is. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I saw him stand up at 270 yards, and from there on, I could see his hillside the entire stalk in. I couldn't see them because he bedded back down and he was so hidden. And obviously at that time, I only thought there was one buck. But yeah, by the time I got in there, I'm like, I have no idea if he's here or not, even though I watched him lay down. I could watch that tree he laid down to the entire time, and I never saw him leave. But I'm not 100% sure he's even here.
They're ghosts, man.
They are. Yeah, they're big, they're smart, they're mature for a reason.
This is on a side note, but if you guys seen the meme video of the UPS driver delivering a package, and there's a mule deer that just jumps out, about kills the poor guy. But that's what it's like though. Like some of those times, like you literally just like shit your pants because it's like there's no way there's a deer here, and you walk by this little finger or whatever it is, and it's like, no, there's 7 of them there. It's like I would not have. They're like, it's insane.
Yeah. I've heard stories on forums and podcasts and whatnot about people glassing up deer from a mile or so away. I don't know the exact distance, what have you, half mile, and he'll watch that buck, and that buck will hunker down 5 yards away from a hiker or another hunter walking by, and that hiker or that hunter or that person doesn't see him, and that buck will stay there until they know that person's gone, and then they'll pop back up and just continue living. Like, they're smart. They're not dumb.
Nope. Yeah, they're a different breed, but kind of going off and just kind of going back to a little bit like what you talked about earlier about like you have to take time to, or not necessarily take time, but you have to like remember that you're there to hunt because you're in such beautiful country. You're taking pictures with your phone. What does that sort of look like as far as, like reconnecting like yourself with like your own faith when you're out on a hunt, whether it's sitting, at, the golden hour back home in the farmland, watching the sun go down, or high country muleys. What does that kind of look like for you?
I mean, it just makes you incredibly thankful, right? So you're just sitting there peaceful, as happy as can be, and just thankful. I mean, more so, 10 times more so when you're standing over a nice big velvet buck, or
Yeah.
or a nice big 10-point around here.
Mhm.
I mean, how many times have you guys gotten emotional over a kill? You're
Yeah.
just happy about it, all that work that you've done, everything that you've
Mhm.
been given in this life. It's just a happy moment.
Yeah.
And, talking about embracing the suck and stuff like that, now that we're kind of in the faith sector of things, when you're going through those really hard moments, if it's climbing a hill or getting stuck in a hailstorm, busting your leg like you did. I know that was already after you shot your deer, though. Is there moments, though, like where you question yourself or you're questioning it? Because I'm sure you're praying while you're out there, too. But, you're just like, man, this sucks. Or do you catch yourself at times where it's like because it sounds like you do, because you sound like you're just incredible to be at the opportunity that you're even there. If there's those little moments where you just catch yourself just saying little prayers or just something that just kind of keeps you going on those hard times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, countless times, right? Whether it's just for this hunt in one example, whether it's looking up at this avalanche chute that I need to climb up to get attempt to stock on this, or this ended up being a batch of group rather than that one buck. Or another example, just from this one hunt, looking at this buck and you're almost 5 miles from my truck, 3 from camp. I got to cut this thing up in the next hour and a half, 2 hours, and haul it out of here. How am I going to do this? Well, I need help.
Well, the funny thing is because you only got one other person that can help you.
Yeah. So say a nice little prayer, and it always ends up working out. Whether it's hiking up a mountain, you don't think you're going to make it, your legs hurt so much, like God, and you just need a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that you hit the nail on the head on that, because there are times, and it's whether it's hunting or just life too, where it's like, Lord, just give me the strength to get through this, get through A, get through B, and sometimes you're sitting there, you're like, hey, you're gonna answer this prayer, and then all of a sudden, something happens, or you get that little boost of energy, and you're like, that little shove behind you, and it's like, all right, he's looking out for you.
Yeah.
He's got my back.
He's there to help me.
Yep.
That's
beautiful.
And then before you know it, then what you just for praying about, you're done with it. You're either finished it or you accomplish it or whatever you're asking for. It's done. You got it.
Yep. Love it, man.
Oh, that's awesome. And and especially talk about beautiful country where you're at. I mean, it's just so, I don't know. I still have I've watched enough videos to feel like I've been there, and I've only been in the mountains once. But I just think of like, I don't know. I've gotten to a point now, like hunting out in South Dakota, where it's like I envision myself doing a high country mule deer hunt, and I've talked with you about doing that hunt a couple of times, and we will make it happen. I need to get out to the mountains and hunt something other than mule deer in South Dakota, but it just sounds like it's just an incredible place and just just a place of solitude.
Yeah. It is gorgeous. I mean, you can't help it. You don't even know how you're going to feel until you get out there. You can drive through it on a highway and your pickup or something like that, and you're like, man, that's super dang cool. But then you hike out there and you're on a ridge line, or you've got your tent set up in a deer bed on this little knob, and it's just second to none. It's just the coolest thing. And I have had a couple solo hunts like that, like I said, but I have never. I would love to have a second person there with me, and I'm sure it'd be twice as fun.
There you go.
No, for sure. Well, and your fiance likes to hunt.
Yeah,
doesn't she?
She's big on turkey. I've got her. I killed her, or she got a turkey killed. I think the Sunday after that Saturday, she took her hunter safety course online.
Nice.
So she got it done in quick order.
Should be ready to rip in a couple of years.
Yeah, she's a big mountain girl. We're getting married out there next.
Yep. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, thank you very much. Next summer out in near the Grand Tetons. So she enjoys hiking. She enjoys.
Wow.
Her and her family are big snowmobilers and whatnot. So yeah, she's a big mountain girl. I've been trying. To get her talked into the thinner, more thin sleeping pads and the one person 24-inch wide solo tents. I'm
Oh,
doing my best.
you
Love
just
it.
got to throw little subtle plugs every now and then and just keep working and just keep working in there. But no, I think it'd be a fun hunt. We should try to, we gotta try to put a little plug in TK's ear and see if we can't get him to fly down from the great old state of Alaska and plan a high country mule deer hunt with all of us. I think that'd be pretty sick.
That would be quite a bit of fun.
There you go.
So,
Full
Whether it be
2025.
hey, yeah.
There you go.
So just transitioning just a little bit here, I know kind of going back to what we started the podcast with, just because it's a little bit more relevant to what we have going on now. Just break us down what you got. What's next, man? You killed a stud buck. We're just coming into the ladder of like the best hunting probably we're gonna have for the next 2 months, and then it's gonna be gone. But like, just what's the fall look like for you now?
So I am a pig farmer, but my family is got a couple thousand acres of crops. So for the next month or so, it's pretty much all corn. Unfortunately,
You could put a saddle on
depends
the. You could put a saddle on the old harvester. Get
There,
her done
there
that
you
way.
go. There you go. Hanging off
I don't know
the
the legality on that one.
No, it's
We
it's
could.
good. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And since we're picking corn, I'm out in fields anyways that I'm going to be hunting, so I get to do a little bit of
Good
scouting anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
No,
that's
it's
I've never thought about that. Going on that little bit of a rabbit hole. When you are out picking, do you quite often see some decent deer out there?
yeah,
think you'd
absolutely.
have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The last couple of years, I've had a couple target bucks that were on the hit list, not necessarily a boon or anything like that, but
Sure.
when we're in the area, I'm always looking out, and not more often than not, but here and there, they come daybreak or within 20 minutes of sunset or something like that, they're going to be popping out.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you
It's
had
happened
it
a couple
though?
times.
Have you had
Nice.
it while you're picking, where they, I've seen videos of that where they're like the deer are almost like pigs, like down in like the south side of the states where they do corn. You see like 15, 20, 30 pigs run out of like the last hedgerow of corn. Like, do you see that with deer too, where they're just holding tight in the corn?
Not like that. No, you
Okay.
will definitely kick up a doe or a buck or something on
Yeah.
the end of the land, but it's not going to be 10, 15 of them.
I always just find that crazy. You see those pictures of those bucks
Oh,
that
yeah.
get picked up by combines. It's just wild.
Yeah. No, I've never seen that. But definitely kick them out. Yeah, like if you're got a little bit of a land and you start working it in, then it gets down to a couple rows, and but it's not uncommon, I suppose.
What about pheasants?
Lots of pheasants.
Love it. Love to hear
Yeah,
that.
man.
We might have to
They're
talk
hiding.
offline and get some pheasant hunting. Yeah. Because pheasant opens up in a week and change here, so I might be plugging you and seeing if we want to get a hunt together or something, because that's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta get Tanner out. Tanner wants the pheasant up this year. I know we just had him on the podcast 2 weeks ago. So Tanner, I know you're listening. We are gonna get you pheasant hunting. We're gonna get you your first pheasant.
There you go. It's gonna be a
Fall
fun
boys.
fall, boys.
I'm excited. Like I love it and hate it at the same time, because like now we're finally like in the meat and potatoes of thing. I mean, we're a month in the season, and Brady, how many times have you hunted?
All at once.
Yeah.
See, same. Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy. But that's okay
we've been busy. Yeah, absolutely. And I more so did it. I minimally invasive. I kind of went to a spot where there's cars driving by and a lot of people walking by, and I went in one row of trees. I minimally invasive, and I just hung up some new steps that I had just to try them out in my saddle, just to try them out and make sure everything was ready to go for when time gets real.
That was right
Nice.
behind the Casey's gas station, right?
Exactly.
Tanner's house.
Tanner's out. No, just kidding.
Actually hanging off the water tower. Yep.
But now that we're coming into the latter part of fall here, like what are your goals? What are some hunts? We've had a couple good fronts that have come through now, and I know multiple people that have killed bucks. But like, yeah, what's the game plan? I know you want to get one before gun season rolls around.
Yep, hopefully get one down before gun season rolls around. with this Colorado deer. That's been my goal for a handful of years now. So I have quite a bit of a monkey off my back than
Nice.
normal. That was my main goal for the year to get one of those killed. So I did accomplish that. So I'm going to be a little more picky around here.
Sure.
But there are a handful of bucks around my area that I would be happy to hang a tag on. Yeah, so hopefully, play some cold fronts right, play the winds right and whatnot when I do get time. Hopefully come November, we're done on the field and then I get to put a little time in. And then again, hopefully harvest ends soon enough and I'm potentially running out to Colorado again, hopefully with another buddy to do an over-the-counter rifle hunt for elk third season more than likely.
Heck yeah.
Is that over the counter for bull too or cow only?
Bull too, yeah.
Ooh,
I believe
nice.
I believe you can pick a bull or a cow tag. I'm not 100% sure, but regardless, either way, elk meat is delicious. So I'm going to be happy with either of them.
So just going off that really quick, and if you don't know, that's fine. But so like with Colorado changing their regs for next year, is it both rifle and bow going out the door for over the counter?
Just archery, I believe.
Really?
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
Just that September archery over the counter. I believe second and third season.
Does that change for mule deer too, or just for elk?
There is no over the counter mule deer tag.
Okay,
it's all a draw.
They're all a draw, whether they're 0 point or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
gotcha.
they're all a draw.
Nice, sweet man. Well, do you want to do some quick fire questions before we let Brady go here?
I got some good ones.
Sweet.
Oh.
I'll go first. So Brady, these are just quick,
very hard, difficult questions.
Very difficult. Yeah, very thought provoking. Yeah, no. So it's you're driving out to Colorado, middle of the night. What is your go-to quick trip snack and drink?
Oh, am I trying to stay awake or am I not trying to stay awake?
It's up to you, man. Like, or maybe a drive, like, whatever. That early morning, you're going out to, for harvest or something. What are you picking up?
Sure. Long drives. I'll grab a Bang Energy or something like that, or a coffee. Bang Energy's got a little bit more caffeine in it, and a little road trip snack. I'm never afraid of some sour gummy worms or something along those lines.
Nice.
I'm a sucker for some trolleys. Yep.
Some sweets. Yeah. Love it. All right, here's another good one. I thought of this one the other day, Bungum. So, Brady, you played basketball, football, that good stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, if you had a walkout song, what would it be?
Oh,
wow, that is the left field.
See,
it's pretty good.
The variety of my Pandora and Spotify is absolutely incredible. So that's a hard one.
That's a tough one. Yeah,
that's a tough one. A walkout song. I think there's one or two that Hardy sings that could be a good, nice,
he's got a
loud,
couple bangers that have just come out.
Yeah, and I'm all the way from Cultural Wall or something along those lines to some pretty, Falling in Reverse or anything like that. I got a large array.
Large variety.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. I got my last one here. What is your bucket? You've done some sweet hunts. What's your bucket list hunt? What's that one that's like, this is something I have to do?
Velvet Colorado mule deer.
Oh, love it. Just doubling down.
Nice.
That was it. Now it's off the list, and I've arrowed elk, thankfully, a couple of years ago. So now the next one that needs to get crossed off is more than likely a moose.
Okay.
I'd love to throw a moose down. Sometime a pronghorn would be great, but that you can do that. Not too terrible of a difficulty over in South Dakota or something like that. Grab an archery tag. A moose would be a little more of a challenge to get done up in the Great North.
Mm-hmm.
But that'd be kind of fun to watch an arrow fly into the lungs of a big old bull, wouldn't it?
That's my dream hunt that I've dreamt about many moons. So I've got a couple quick ones for you. So first one, back on the snack train, because we always ask snack questions because I'm a foodie and I pack a shit ton of food. Now, different scenario though. You're 10,000 feet You just hiked in 6 miles. You're tired. You packed in your food. What's the first snack you're going to or meal out of your food stash?
Right after that, if it's in the middle of the day, I got them for this year, and I absolutely fell in love with them. Is those green belly meals?
Oh,
Just to they're big old kind of thick bars. They got like 700 calories or something like that, and they just replenish you. I've figured out after a couple. You still there, Evan? There you go. After a couple of years, I figured out that it's really more so the calories than it is the taste of them. Especially after last year, like I said, I had 1,600 calories or whatever, so I did change that. It was terrible. But
it sounds so bad.
It didn't help. Yeah, just replenishing those calories, and if it tastes good, that's even better. But outside of that, you got to peak every night, a peak refuel or a mountain house, the highest caloric potential that you could have.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So sticking to that same theme, what's the one piece of gear you can't live without? Outside of the staples like your bow, your optics, your backpack. Like, what's one piece of gear though? Like, something unique. Is it like a particular knife that you have? Is it just something like that? Like, what's one piece of gear that that you've bought that is just essential, and if you don't have it, you're going back to the truck to get it?
That's a good question. Like outside of your essentials that you said, you got your tent and your sleeping pad. I don't think it's.
Is it like a pillow, like an air pillow?
That's what I was just gonna say. I don't know if it's 100% what everybody brings as a pillow, but I have a pillow. It was an air pillow,
it's a game changer.
And then it is. It makes you sleep so much better, and then you're not sore.
Yeah.
Mine actually got a hole in it for some reason. I don't know if it was too many uses or what, but then I ended up using my sleeping pad. It's got a little sack to blow up air, so you don't have to take 1,700 breaths to blow it up when you're at 13,000 feet. So I have a little blow up kind of pouch, and I stuff a puppy in that and roll that up for the evening. And then it's more so like an actual pillow rather than just an air filled pillow.
Yeah. Sure. Nice.
So last one I've got. So nice.
Last one I've got. Now that you've killed one, and not saying that you need to be picky because that's a hard hunt to go through and even just successfully kill one, but you had to pick out your dream muley, high country muley, because if people don't know, high country mule deer, they're big. Not only are their bodies ginormous, most rack sizes are typically a lot bigger than what you'd see for an average mule deer in, low country or prairie, that type of stuff. They're just genetically bigger. Would you rather have like a gnarly, non-typical mule deer? Or would you rather have like a clean 4x4 with just, size and mass? Or like, what's
clean
the perfect? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I love them. I also do love a little bit of variety in the side to side. Whether it's an inline on one side or like this one is the one that I killed ended up being a 4x3. So his 2 doesn't have a 3 coming off his left side, I would say. I'm pretty sure. So it's just a nice, I think it's 15 inches long and it's got mass to it. It just doesn't end up forking. But his right 2 has like a 4 or 5 inch 3. It's a shallow fork on the back end on his right side, but it's still a fork. So. And he's got eye guards, I think you want to call them out there, not broad tines like we call them around here. I love typical. I love framey. Like I said prior, if it's a 2-point, it's tall, big, massy, wide, whatever. It's gorgeous.
Love it. Well, sweet, man. Well, we just want to. Actually, we haven't done this. We need to do this. We skipped this on the last one. Brady, totally up to you. Otherwise, we can run with 2, but love to close it out with a prayer.
I'm here for it. Lead along, my friend.
Right. Do you want to take it or do you want us to run with it?
You guys got her.
Luke, it's all you, man.
Sounds good. Lord, we just come to you tonight and thank you for, reconnecting us all. I know it's been some time since we've all been able to sit down and talk, and we're just grateful for all the opportunities that you give us and all the blessings that you provide for us. And we just ask that you continually look out for our family members and our loved ones and keep us safe on all of our adventures and our hunts. And we just come to you as grateful men and just beyond, like I said, beyond grateful for everything that you've given us, everything you will give us. And we're eternally grateful for everything you provide, and we just look to you in our time of need and our time of happiness and joy and sorrow and everything. So Lord, we just, again, like I said, just continually are grateful. That's the tone for tonight, is just gratefulness, and we just give thanks to you and all that you provide. So in that, we'll close with amen.
Amen. That's awesome.
There we go.
Good.
Just like that.
Just
Good
like
stuff,
that, man.
boys.
Heck yeah.
First
Thank you guys
podcast for
having
you.
me. Oh yeah, and I would imagine that you've been able to tell, but I'm a terrible public speaker, and I'm just terrible.
Dude, you
nervous
killed
about
it.
it.
You did good,
You
man.
killed it, man.
I'm
That was
shaking
awesome.
over here.
No, dude.
No, well,
That was-
we'll
that
definitely-
story was
definitely
sweet,
have it
man.
back on. It was talk about a cliffhanger. I mean, I still can't believe that you encompassed all of that, but that's high country hunting, I guess. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It just puts it. Just I don't know. I'm not diminishing what we do in South Dakota, but it's funny because it just. If you were to come out and do the hunt with us, you'd probably just be like, "Wow, this is easy."
Oh no! Oh, I would highly doubt that. Yeah.
I just think you just throw like I complain about sometimes. It's like God, that's like 20 or that's like 2,900 feet. Like that's so high, and it's just like, oh well, yeah. I was at 12.5. It's just like I couldn't breathe.
No, everything's got its own challenges. I mean, I took my dad to Montana a couple of years ago, and that was an easy draw. But the challenge there was you get to drive around for hours and hours a day, and you're looking at little 40-acre pieces here and there that antelope are about 50 yards off of. They're in the private. That's the difficulty there. They all have their different things.
Yep, for sure.
Well, man, we appreciate you and your time that you took tonight to hop on with us, and we're excited that it's fall, and then hopefully be able to have you back on with another success story here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck to you guys. I wouldn't mind doing if we have some success doing like a wrap up or something like that. I don't know if you guys do a wrap up at the end of the season or something.
It's called Campfire.
First year of the podcast, man.
Perfect.
We gotta do one.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
Sweet, man.
That sounds
well,
good.
guys, thanks so much again for listening, and Brady, thank you again for hopping on, and see you next time.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.